But
So Neil, how are you, mate? And how's things going?
all good, mate. All good, going well. Been hard as always. Just when I can, and rugby and sport, and when I get a bit of free time.
Right, mate. So we'll go right back to the beginning, right before your rugby story. So where was home for you, and who lived at home with you?
Uh, Home for me was 412 Liverpool Road. It was me, my mum, my dad, and my two elder sisters. Very soon, my niece Emily came along, Karen's daughter. So there was quite a few of us at 412 Liverpool Road. And
Right,
that was kind of like it till I was in high school. And then we moved over to Redbourne Drive, which is just off Haddon Drive, into a bungalow. Lynn and Cameron had moved out by then. And we were there for a couple of years. We lived in Hayes Road with our Lynn for a little bit while we waited for our house to be ready. And then we eventually moved into 5 Radnor. And obviously now we've moved into the new bungalow where we're living now at the minute. So that's pretty much home for us at
because
the start.
the G-man caused a few enemies, and he's had to dot around.
Yeah, yeah, it's my mum. It's my mum. It's not she. It's my
Yeah,
mum,
I
innit?
didn't want to say it.
She's the one that caused no. But yeah, we just moved about a bit, and then obviously I think we've been the longest in Radnor for a long, long time, and it got to the stage where I think it was best that we move on for them for the good of the knees and that and the stairs. So that's where we find ourselves now.
Yeah. So how was that as a kid, mate? Because that's a few moves, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't like it didn't have any impact on me really. I knocked about with the same lads since I was 6 years old, and I'm still mates with them now to this day. So I've always got lifts there or gone on my bike or anything. So it's never been like a problem, and I've always been able to make friends everywhere I've gone. There were lads up uh, in Redbourne Drive up there where I played football with the Shepherds. I still see them now and then. I still see a couple of the lads, out and about who are kind of know from down Ditton Way and that. So, yeah, it didn't really have a negative effect on me. It probably helped me. In fact, that I see people now and chat to them and in the pubs and things like that. I probably only know them from like having a kick about on the street, but you have a catch up
Yeah,
and you're friends for life in effect, really, isn't it?
it is, mate. It is. So how did rugby become part of your life? Was it something that was already there before you come along?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone who knows, like my mum and dad, will tell you they had long-standing traditions with the club, probably longer than most people realise. But my mum and dad had obviously met at the club. My mum was working behind the bar. My dad was a player, so coach. So I think it was kind of destiny that I had to have some involvement at some point. So
Yeah.
for me, I can't remember going up to the club with my dad and sort of being like told like go and play and just like running in and out of the big room, the concert room, as like
Yeah.
literally a kid. And if I wanted anything from the bar, I'd go and ask for it, and my dad would pay for it later on. But then I'd like sort of go and mark with my dad in the middle of the game, not realizing that he was actually coaching the first team, and it was a pretty big thing, And I'm like going, Dad, can I, and not realizing that
Yeah.
actually I shouldn't be doing that, marking him, I should be leaving him, and I kind of like I've got like a couple of really vivid memories about it, and um, when people say like well, what's your first memories of rugby? One of them is my dad had just got a brand new car because he worked for Ready Mix RMC, which obviously
Yeah.
everyone knows the white orange van, whatever it is around
Yeah.
there. And we were going to watch a second team game, and we've talked about this all the time. The two memories that I'll tell you about, and that uh, we went to this place and the first team weren't playing. So my dad and Mike Ryan, who were coaching the first team, were on one side of the pitch, and the first team were on the
Yeah.
other side of the pitch, watching this lad play in the second team to see if he was good enough for the first team. They didn't speak at all. Because obviously I knew the first team lads because my dad had sent me training to like Bankfield or to the gym or where, and I'd see the lads, I'd speak with Les and people like that. You know, all these like characters who to me, they were just like the lads that my dad coached. So I didn't really grasp the first team or the importance of it or anything. And then we sort of Matty Ryan wasn't with us. He'd gone with somebody else. He then got in the car with us and we were driving home. My dad had just got a brand new M Reg Mondeo, which was like everyone was going, "Oh, look at that!" But it was a company car, so it really wasn't his. But it was a big thing.
That doesn't matter.
And we're driving home. We're driving to the club. Sorry, we get back to the club, and some of the first team are stood at the door of the Wids. And before my dad and Mike have said anything, these first team players went, "It's not good enough, is he, George?" And my dad went, "No." And walked into the lounge, and I had to go into the big room. And like I always remember that. And when I've gotten older, I'm thinking to myself, that's how in sync they all were. They all knew what level had to be, to be a first team player or to be a player with the Wids. They didn't speak, there was no interaction, but they all knew that this player that they'd gone to watch wasn't good enough, just simply wasn't good enough. And then another memory that sticks out is we went to Ruskin Park, me and my dad on a scouting mission, because my dad used to always go look for players. People would see him in the club and say, "Can you go and speak to this person?" And we went to see a prop from Ruskin Park. I think his name was Carl Wales or something like that. He ended up coming to the club eventually, but we couldn't go when you go to Ruskin Park and you go through like the main way to the pitches, if you remember it.
The little brook thing.
Yeah, we had to go like sneak around the back and like go through the trees, and so we wouldn't get noticed. And we stood there.
You were loving it,
yeah, because I was a kid thinking, "What's going on here?"
It's an adventure, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a mission. And then we got to the end of the pitch, and me and my dad were talking about this the week actually, and we stood there, and this fella just appeared and went, "Hello, George, have you come to watch?" He rumbled us. He knew who my dad was, so it was like this big thing of, "Oh, look, have you come to watch?" And the lad ended up coming and playing for the Wids, and they were sort of my first two interactions with that I can remember of being like with the Wids, and in the like the Lancashire Cup, how much of a big thing that was. And people always say, "Oh, you're always going out with the Lancashire Cup," but if you speak to the fellas who won it and who they beat and what they had to do, you realise what they respect and around it is, and it everything.
It was massive, mate. They had like a civic reception and everything.
Unbelievable.
Massive.
And it's fantastic what the club have done in the last few years, and nobody can take that away from them. But you've got to tip your hat to those fellas as well, because I was in there one night and somebody said to me, "It's the equivalent of Accrington Stanley winning the European Cup in that time," because they were playing against England players, like Bill Beaumont, and there's a video knocking about somewhere where Leslie's kicking the ball to the England internationals, and they're kicking it back, and so you've got to give and you've got to give like respect for that era, and I was sort of like dragged up on that. I think it's a wonderful thing to have, but I'm probably born in the wrong era because I'm dragged up on that, so my standards in effect are probably more into that.
Yeah.
Of he's the best, and if he's better than him and that. But I tip my hat to anybody who plays at any level, because it's tough. It's not the easiest sport in the world, and that was that's my first inkling into it. And then
what an introduction, though, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty mad to think, because I used to always say, my dad's just my dad. He's not. What does he know? And little did I know he was the coach of these two teams until I was older, and I was kind of like, "You did this," and he'd be like, "Yeah." So that's one of my first introductions to it. But they had like a Wids kids section going, and I was sort of took up on a Sunday and sort of thrown involved, and I think Jimmy O'Neill and Tony Boyle were the coaches, and Martin Griffiths, John Lutton, and Steve Morris, they had a big hand in it all, and they sort of like ran the teams, and there's a, I mean, I'm repeating the book here, but it was kind of like my mum's job to organise for the kits, and we had these awful brown kits, and there's a picture in the room of us all stood in it, and it being like not red and black, brown, because it was the cheapest one, and me Auntie Jean did a raffle in the pub, and that was it, and we played these games, and I think if you go through that mini and junior section there, I think there's a good chunk of lads who certainly played open age and certainly played senior rugby, but also captained the club. So that's sort of my remembering of it, is the fact that those seeds that were sown then really did wonders for the club in the long term.
Yeah, and it's so quite early on, mate. not so. You're watching the on-field stuff, aren't you? But you're seeing like I use the word quite a bit when it comes to like technique in a game, but you're seeing the off-field intricacies, aren't you? So you're
Yeah,
seeing like the dark arts of recruitment, of fundraising, of
yeah,
not being rude to your mummy and auntie Jean, but scratching together a kit
yeah,
for
yeah,
kids
yeah.
and like setting up that way. So that was the first real pathway, really, wasn't it? The Wids kids is what we now know as the route to
Yeah.
junior rugby at the club, isn't it? And
Mhm.
which is back up and running now, thankfully. Adam and Dave Griffin stuff and
Yeah.
uh, Barrack Huff and that have all got junior teams there. Mickey Kelly doing a great job as well. But that is the fundamentals of any club is volunteers and kids, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. You can't. The biggest thing I used to say to people is if you as a volunteer can give 1 hour of your time a week to the club, the whole place changes. You know, if you can give
Yeah,
2, 3 hours, brilliant. You're not gonna give 5, not gonna give 10, not gonna give, you know, the best will in the world. Not everybody can, but if you can go
no,
up and say, listen, I can do this for 2 hours a week, it makes a massive difference in the grand scheme of things. You know, if you get 20,
yeah.
30 people doing that, the whole place changes. You want to go for like the Tuesday, the DIY club,
I
things
was
like
going to
that.
say that.
You
Yeah, the
know,
Tuesday club and that. Yeah,
it just changes the whole complexity of the place.
yeah. And do you know what, mate? I was probably one of them, sadly. But do you know, sometimes when you're hear of jobs that need to be doing, or it's took loads, you you snob it. Do you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I'm not doing that sort of
Yeah,
thing. But if it
yeah.
doesn't get done, nothing else gets done. But you
There's
don't
stuff.
realise until you're outside the
Yeah,
pitch there.
yeah. There's stuff that I used to say to people like people would say to me, "No, I'm not doing that," and I'd turn around and go, "Well, it's your first team pitch, so if you don't do it, no one, it's not
No
getting
one will
done."
do it. Yeah,
And then
yeah,
it was suddenly, and you'd sort of like after emotional blackmail them in a way. And I kind of
yeah.
learnt that from an early age of how to sort of like not work people, but be able to say to them,
Convince
listen,
people.
yeah,
Yeah,
you need to do this because if you don't, it ain't going to be done. And
yeah,
sometimes I wouldn't say it. I'd get somebody else to say it who's kind of a bit more clout about me or about them and sort of say, we need this doing and stuff. And
yeah,
many a time, we've had to do the pitch or we've had to paint or something like that. Yeah, I've
yeah.
maybe said the first time, but then somebody else has said it and then it's growing. And if you took the volunteers out of any rugby club, there wouldn't be a rugby club.
No,
It,
they wouldn't, mate.
it
Yeah.
just fade.
And I think we're quite lucky because the young lads that come through, not just like Tom and Marker and Jack and that now, and Andy Owens, but a little bit before them and before us, like my age group, which you helped out with, we'll touch on later. But the buy-in's really good, isn't it? We
Yeah.
might say no once or twice, but once you see the benefit and you
Mhm.
see that the buy-in's bigger from outside of you, you sort of you go with you jump on the bandwagon sort
Yeah,
of thing, don't you?
absolutely.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
mate. So you're around the club, you're involved with the Wids kids and that. What junior school did you go and was sport prevalent in your junior school?
I went to Our Ladies down there. Down it was in Avondale Drive Infants, and then went to the junior school, which is in Clington View, which is just round the corner now from where I live. So sport wasn't really. I probably stopped having any sport interaction probably when I was in like first year of say junior school. I just didn't really take to it. Sport wasn't my thing. I wasn't very good at it. Still not now, but I sort of did
You
other
wear the
things.
shorts better now, though, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got better legs now. Only just stuff. And so I did other things, and I had other interests like you do. You drift away from it, and I kind of had a couple of games, I think, for the school, and drifted in and out with maybe the Wids at the time, but and that was it. And then I just stopped playing at about say probably about 10, 11 maybe. Just stopped playing altogether.
So when you say a couple of games, rugby,
Yeah, a couple of games of rugby. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Just
yeah,
like sort of. And it's funny because I was actually talking to one of my mates, Dave Quayle, I'm still mates with now from school, and
yeah.
he found a picture of a couple of years ago, and we were talking about it. We had the bright yellow kit with like a blue V on it, and it was like horrendous. And
I remember that. I remember that.
Well, he said it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I remember that." So I said to him, "He's got to burn. If we find a picture, we got to burn it. So someone will probably have that somewhere. It's an awful yellow kit with this blue V, but yeah, that was awful."
So a funny story about Dave before we move on, which
Yeah,
you'll know yourself, won't you? About
yeah.
upsetting a certain superstar at Widnes
Which one?
Vikings.
He's upset loads. Chap. I could be here all night for you.
So previously, when you've said the club, we mean Widnes Rugby Union for any viewers and
Yeah,
listeners that don't know. Forgetting, I obviously know you quite well, or I thought I did. And when we're going back to Dave, mate, Dave worked for Widnes Vikings, didn't he? So he
yeah.
upset a Mr Hawk, didn't he?
Well, basically, what happened was Widnes was on loan from Wigan at the time.
Yeah.
Widnes were going through a bit. Weren't great. They weren't doing, and they went to Hull and got bust. And David had the bus and started to talk, obviously, and said, "Oh, you've had brave pills, and I'll see you there." Dave at the stadium, which is obviously a player. He works for the council, and he had to be moved to the Brindley, which is the Runcorn for his own safety. When he's telling us that, like, it for him, and I kind of like fell off our chair. Was saying, "I'm going to send him you unless you give me a grand," and to him, and I was typing it and trying to show it him, saying, "Postcode and all he needs, Dave, for being knocked." And time now he messages a celebrity. I thought he'll get you. I think it was because handing Gaz up, and wasn't really happy. But Brown apparently grabbed him and said, "Our Gaz, he's not happy with you." And Dave was sort of escorted out the building for 2 weeks for his own.
Sure, a new workplace.
I said to him, "You want to get your there, mate?"
Yeah, we done the looking after him.
Definitely. But yeah, I could, a few times we've messaging other people, but yeah, you could write a book. Character to get on here just for his Runcorn playing over the.
Right. So your sporting journey sort of like stagnates at that age, then, mate. So you've just, like you said, you've played the odd couple of games and you're flicking back into the club. What's ticking the boxes for a young Neil then? Because no offence, mate, but there was no PlayStations, Xboxes, and that was the mate. Weren't even MSN at this point, really. Was there?
You what, mate?
Weren't even MSN at this point, was there?
No, I don't think. No, I never did MSN. I'm not that cool. For me, it was just going out and like doing silly things on the streets with my mates. Like riding my bike, or we played football, but we didn't play like for a team or anything. It was kick about on Banky or
just your bike upside down or whatever. Yeah, jumpers for goal balls
like that. Yeah, nothing particular. I think it was like a bit, like you say, a bit of a drifting period, and I went to Peter and Paul, and you meet new people, don't you? And you sort of like gauge their interests, and I kind of got interested in music then, and started to listen to it, but I never really like played an instrument or anything. But yeah, around that time, it was kind of like just you try new things, aren't you, to see what you like and which is best for you. So yeah.
Right, so you touched on it. Sorry, mate, you touched on it though, which was going to be my next question. Didn't, but you've answered it sort of. So music never replaced the rugby. It's just something you come across in your transition into high school.
Yeah,
because I've no doubt your mum and dad listened to it, but like the stuff we're into, which we'll talk about more later as well. Yeah. We'll touch on it now. I can't imagine your mum and dad are overly mad on it. Do you know what I
mean? My dad likes Oasis, which is quite funny at times because he'll listen to that. And, but like I got bought like one of the CDs off like a Christmas or something, our birthday, and I just sort of like that was it. Then I just listened to it, and we all sort of walked around thinking we were Liam and Noel Gallagher at Peter and Paul for a little bit. Some of the lads still do now to this day that I see, in some of the bands that are still knocking about. It's time to grow up, fellas. But Yeah, so that was it. It was just kind of like, if you were cool, you like the Oasis. If you were really cool, you like Ocean Colour Scene, The Jam, and Paul Weller and Pulp and people like
Right.
that. And if you like Blur, you got put in the bin. So nobody liked Blur. So
Oh, I admitted to it.
yeah, I admitted to it anyway. Yeah, he did definitely went in the bin. But yeah, that
So,
was sort of it.
yeah, how did transition into high school go then? Because as much as a lot of us fall back on sport, mate, for icebreakers, what did you
Mm.
use? What was transition like? Because I know you've flipped in and out, but it isn't a priority of yours at the
Yeah,
minute, is it?
yeah. No, I mean for me, so just going back to like infant school, when I was in infants, I was diagnosed with being dyslexic. So
Okay.
struggling like with words and reading and writing and things like that. I was told that I was quite smart in effect, but I struggled with, spelling and writing and things like that. So I didn't really enjoy school, if I'm honest with you. I found it a bit of a struggle. But anything practical, like for instance, like woodwork or cooking or anything like that, I enjoyed because it wasn't I wasn't using my brain as much as like trying to
Yeah.
write or read or things like that. So
Oh, you
um,
was without realising.
well, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just second nature to me. I could do that
Yeah.
sort of thing, and it's sort of now where I look back and I think to myself, yeah, I didn't really enjoy school. And I know when people say it's the best time of your life, I think outside of school age, for me, it was not necessarily inside of school. So I kind of like the 5 years at high school, I can sort of like forget that. And just college is
Yeah.
when I kind of like came into my own, I think, when I finally started to find my character and find my personality and that.
So, for one, that's quite an early diagnosis, mate, because it wasn't well spoke of, was it,
No,
when
no,
you were
no.
growing up? So, and two is you're pretty articulate. So, when you're around, you're in that, like, you wouldn't know that
Mm,
because
yeah,
when we jot stuff down, joking, like we mess about the best Super League team, which Sean knows nothing about.
yeah, that's true. He
But
knows nothing about.
yeah, but like when we confer and stuff, you're not slowing it. You know your players.
Mm,
Like saying when we've been abroad, jotting about on tables, you're
yeah.
pretty confident to step up and do it. We speak like we speak now when we see each other.
Mm,
It's like your coordination's really good, which
mm.
we'll touch on later, not for just through sport, but through career path you chose and that. So, what did you have any aid at school? How
Yeah,
did they help you?
I I got diagnosed with Mrs. Bates, who recently just passed away. My teacher, her son,
Yeah,
Tommy, had dyslexic, was dyslexic, and she sort of like diagnosed it and sort of said, and said he's got it. And I think I was in like second year of junior school, and then I sort of like got extra help, and I was taken out of school for I was taken to Runcorn to another school and things like that. So people might not remember it who was in school with me, but I think 2 or 3 days a week I wasn't actually at Our Ladies. I was going to other schools for extra help and showing how to do
yeah,
things and everything. And the same Peter and Paul. I could sort of like pick two classes that I wanted to come out of, and I always picked English because I hated it. Because it
yeah.
was I was always come out and go and have like extra classes at the library and that, was sort of like helped
All
me
right.
get me moved on. And like in exams, some of them I had a
Mm,
reader and a writer. Sometimes that like hindered me, so I'd ask them, could I do it and stuff. So that's the kind of what I had at school, but I've always been able
yeah,
to talk, and I've always been confident in my ability to talk to people. So that comes across quite well in obviously my career, what I do in that. But like I've never let it sort of hinder me as much as people like will say, oh, this and that. If we go for a job interview or anything like that, I'll rarely tell them that I'm dyslexic, because some
yeah.
people will look at you differently and say, well, he's not for us, or
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's and people say, oh, they don't, they do, because I've
You
seen
do,
it
yeah,
firsthand, and so I don't sort of like, very few people know that I am, dyslexic, but yeah, that was done. So yeah, second year of juniors, that's when I was diagnosed, and I've
yeah.
had it ever since, and it'll never go away.
No, I didn't have a clue, but thanks for sharing it. It's
No, it's
because
fine, mate.
like it's not easy, mate, is it? Sometimes for people and that. So, how was it flicking in and out of school for relationships? Was it? like you said, easy enough because of football and stuff and just common interest, or was it tricky?
Yeah, it was fairly easy because once you like, because I was watching Widnes as well throughout that period. So there were a couple of lads in like my year who were like into rugby, and you end up in the same like like class, don't you, with this like
Yeah,
all these couple of years. So I ended up with lads who like were playing rugby or things like that. Did you watch that? Yeah, and so they might have been the better rugby players, but I could interact with them that way, or with football because I'm an Aston Villa fan. Um, we could have like good chats about football and that. So yeah, it was pretty good relationships with people in there because you still see them now, and I still get asked the question, "You still a Villa fan?" Yeah, unfortunately, I am. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
right.
uh,
Which ain't unfortunate these days, mate.
no, it's
There's a
not.
good
No,
side there. But
no.
how does that come about? How does a Widnes lad become a Villa fan?
My sister Karen was uh, going out with a lad at the time. He wasn't really into football, and he supported Villa because he liked the kit, and he gave me a shirt and kind of got me into it. And I just sort of stuck with it. And at the time, it was like different, and I sometimes like standing out, and it was good because I could always like I wasn't ever involved in the arguments about football. I was always like out of it. Like there was me and a lad called Mike McCann. He's sadly not with us anymore. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was a Newcastle fan. Um, so me and him would sit on like the outside of this Liverpool United argument, sort of like watching,
Debate,
going
yeah.
back and forth, thinking we're safe in, and someone would like turn it around on one of us, and we'd be like, "What have we done? We haven't done anything. We're out of it." But,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
So
how I
one
ended
of the
up with
key
Villa.
things I remember about Villa, mate, is I think it was a 95, 96 season. Remember the sticker books? Like the
Yeah,
proper like Panini sticker book. It was Gary Charles, your right back, that I
yeah,
needed to fill the book. And no one would swap it, me and that. So I had to get it from like I got it from like the year before
yeah,
and put it in. But obviously the kit's different, isn't it?
yeah. You
Brett
feel,
wrecked it for me.
you feel cheated, don't you? You feel. I don't
Big
think I
time,
ever
yeah.
finished one of them. If I could,
Yeah, I
if I could
never
have,
went one of them swap shops either.
yeah,
Remember they were
yeah.
advertised in
They
it
were
and
like
that.
they were like the big thing. It was like
Yeah,
if you went there, you knew game over.
it
You
cracked
you
it.
you'd
Yeah,
completed life.
yeah. No, but it's like I imagine that now is like the adult version is the footy top shop you know about,
Yeah, probably is. Yeah, yeah. Go
isn't
in
it?
there.
Yeah. Like, so players over the years for Villa who's ticked the box where you've gone. It's got a bit.
Uh, Paul
Because
Merson's
you've
my
had
all
some
time.
ballers, haven't you?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Paul Merson's my all time favourite.
yeah.
Just because he was absolute magic when he came for us. Um, Jack was good until he left for City, but I understand why he did that. James Milner was absolutely outstanding for us, and Stan Petrov, they were like. But now in this current crop, Martinez, the goalie, is another level. He's like wow. And Diaby, this new lad, the French winger, he's pretty handy. He's gonna be a big thing. I can't see him staying at Villa for long.
No, but you'd have thought that about Leon Bailey, though, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, but he's been injured a lot, and he didn't, like he said,
Yeah,
he didn't realise the pace of the Premiership and how tough it was. He was injured a lot last year, and he's been injured again this week. So I think it's like anything. If you big fish in a small pond and you suddenly get put in the ocean, you realise that actually you're not as good as you think you are, unless you are like a Haaland or a Messi or a Ronaldo type player.
yeah. Right, mate. So we'll go back to high school then. And you, like you said, you're adjusting to school and stuff, mate. What was the ambition through school, career-wise?
I didn't really have anything until probably the last maybe the third year when you had to pick your options and you had to like
Yeah,
go through and it was kind of like right, I'm going to pick the most practical options you can do. So I did like drama, woodwork, and like catering because I just at that point decided I wanted to be a chef. So I thought if I'm going cook in a classroom for you know 6 hours a week, that'll be all right. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and that's where I was obviously in the same class as your Becky, your sister, where she used to regularly
right.
tell me you know my brother Johnny plays rugby, and I was like, I don't know him.
I don't.
And then years later,
He's a no one.
Yeah, and she was like, you do, you know him, you must do. He plays rugby, and we're like, Becky doesn't work like that. Just because
No.
our lads play rugby doesn't mean we know everybody. And she was adamant that we all knew you, and we didn't. Years later,
She thought it was big time.
Yeah, you know my brother, we don't. But there was like 3 or 4 lads in this class who said, we don't know him, we don't know. He's too young.
Yeah.
He's like, you know. But
no, it is. It's mad. Plus, it's like I was playing rugby league as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I hadn't heard of rugby union until like I got to high school. To be honest with you, mate.
Well, that was it. Because at school, like we had that, like a really good rugby team, because they had like the Hornets team in my year, so it was like really good, and I really wasn't into it. But I just remember like people like Liam McGovern and Jamie Durbin and people like that who were just like outstanding rugby players who were in our year, and like people would say like, you know, our team's really, really good.
No, it generally was though, wasn't it? It was like, I think all of them, but one got signed. All of them.
I think 16, like didn't he? Yeah, it was like,
it was a freakish team.
Yeah, all conquering. They all sort of like peaked at the same time as well. You know, like 11 through to 16, you get lads who are like 6'4" and like 4'0". I think they were all sort of like in their like teenage peak throughout that. So, you know, they were coming up against teams and putting quite big scores on them. So, they were.
Well, you know where McGuff is now, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I've seen it.
Didsbury.
Yeah. So,
to be honest, he come training at the Wids, and I think it was one of the sessions where not a lot of the first team lads were there, and the standard was poor, mate. Even I thought like, this is shit. It's if you were coming to sign for us, you wouldn't sign. Well, and I think that's what happened there. I think McGuff sort of looked at that and thought, I don't want to speak for him. I get on well enough with him to be able to tell me privately, but that's like, if I'd have been in and I'd have went and
gone somewhere else,
regardless of me being from there, when someone's going to look after you a little bit elsewhere, I wouldn't have come back.
Well, his first game for Waterloo was after the Wids thirds played their third team on the big pitch. They had like a fun day. And I was playing fullback for the third. Don't ask me why. I was playing fullback for the third, but I was. And on that big pitch at Waterloo, and it's, you know, it's bigger than the earth, isn't it?
Yeah, it's big.
I'm walking back after this try at bars and getting battered, and I hear this, "Hey, up Streety," and I turn, and I just went, "What are you doing here?" As he's like trotting up there, because I sat next to him and I talked to him again, well with Liam, and he went, "You know what it is." So after our game, before they were doing the proper warm, we had a bit of a chat, and then I seen him a few months later, and I said, "How's it going?" And he said, "Yeah," and that was his first game of rugby union. So,
right, what, straight from Saints?
No, just time after that would be probably been like Rochdale and Swinton and Blackpool and that. Later on. But that was. I just didn't expect to see this as I looked and seen who it was, because I didn't expect, you know, the name Streety to be shouted. I was just like, "What are you doing here? Unbelievable!"
Yeah. And did he charge you to get tenner to get in the robbing bastards?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Even though we were playing, probably. Players, mate. It's a women's game. No players, honest.
Yeah. And what we've spoke about, like, in general before, when we've been in the same company, mate, and had a few fruity ciders, is how you can tend to, don't know whether it's from the days with your dad climbing through trees to watch players out, but you tend to be able to see talent, even if the talent isn't being shown. Like, you can spot a rough gem, right? Is that something you've been able to do through school? Because some players that think they are good players and make good coaches don't necessarily make the best coaches. Some of them do.
Yeah.
But I think you've been someone that's been able, along with Kyle was great with us young lads. Mentioned before, Liam Wild was great with us. Borgie, Baraclough, Shingy coming through, people like John Parker and that were all great with us. But is that something you've noticed, mate? You've been able to like help unearth or clean these little gems we've had.
I think
without Football Manager as well. Do you know
what I mean?
Like,
without champ manager. I think it's because of that.
Yeah, without a scouting system.
Hours of champ manager. No, I think one of the like I'm not going to sit here and like blow me on trumpet because I don't want to. But one of the things that I'm kind of good at is I can see potential in people when they can't see it themselves. So,
Yeah.
and one of the things I like doing is I like developing people. I like seeing where they're at, seeing where I can get them to. That's in like my job now, and also like in my coaching. And I think you've got to be positive with these people because a lot of the time, like there are some coaches, and we know who they are, who everything's shit, everything's rubbish. There's no good thing, And if you tell somebody all the time that you're rubbish, you can't do this, it subconsciously stays in their mind, so
I
they can't.
believe it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like when you go to the gym and the personal trainer is going to you, you can do this, you can do this. It's reinforcing that, and a lot of the time with some of the lads that you get, everyone knows they're a good player. They know they're a good player, but because they've been chipped away at, you just need somebody to put their arm around and say, "You can do this." Like a lot of the time in like
Personal
13.
trainers that don't give you tramadol plasters and a diet sheet.
No, no,
Not that
I've
type of
no,
personal trainer.
not that type of thing. I'll ring you up in it on a Wednesday afternoon to say that you're shite at Waterloo and you didn't even play, stuff like that. Or can you get such a body's phone number for you? And you're thinking, I've never met him. Like, I don't even know who this person is. But yeah, that sort of stuff. But that's how I view it. Like, even in the third team and fourth team, when that's where I spent the majority of my playing career. If you could build one of those lads up and then you never saw him again, you were made up because our goal was always get someone in that first team. We get somebody out of this third team into that first team. We've done our job. That was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily for win every week. Like I used to joke all the time. If someone turned up with they were really really good, and he'd go, "Oh, what was he like?" Like Tank could go, "Well, how was he like?" He'd go, "Oh, he's rubbish." Like, it was man of the match. What was him?
Yeah.
And he'd like looking across the table. Scored six, but he's rubbish. Tank, we don't want him. But
Yeah.
that would be the case. If we'll have him another week and then give him in the second, and that's
Yeah.
my philosophy is seeing what people can do and seeing where they can go. Like I used to say to some of the Colts, yes, you're playing in this position now. Don't think you're always going to be in that position because your body shape changes. Your body changes, your mind changes. Yes, at 16, you're the tallest on the team, but come to 18, 20, you might be a dumpy front rower. Do you know what I mean? So you might go from that second row to that front row, and you just don't know. So for me, it was just about looking at people's potential, about where they were, getting to where they could be over time. In terms of talent spotting, you know a good player when you see one if you know rugby and if you understand rugby. If you don't understand rugby, and there are people at every club who think they know rugby, it's like at 10 to say 14, everyone thinks Martin O'Fire's the best player in the Widnes team when they're watching him, or the winger who scores all the tries.
Yeah.
They don't realise it's the fellas inside him that are making that until he's slightly older. That's, I think, when you get your mind is like 14, 15, 16, 17, that's when you sort of realise that actually the fella who's getting all the glory isn't the fella who's the playmaker. It's the guy inside with him, the 6 and the 7 or the 10 and the 9. And that's the way that's my philosophy on it. So.
And you've seen the game change as well, mate. Like our positions, not just body type and size and power, but attribute wise, like in both courts as well. I mean, yeah, because you're not just a rugby union fan. You love your rugby league, like you said, and you can spot both. But how have you seen the way people adapt to the way the game's changed? Do people adapt at all to it? Do they still think the old way suits? Or
I think it depends. If you look at when I first started playing, like when I went back to the Widnes when I was like 16, we had a team that was like a lot of rugby league lads was in it. Like Ash Watmore was playing in that, and we had a couple of other lads who were like really really like we played like a rugby league type hybrid of rugby union. 10 years later, both games have completely changed. 10 years again, it's completely changed and it's completely different now. I think if you're a good player, you're a good player in any era because the fundamentals of the sport are the same. You know what I mean? Rugby, it's just people sort of change the way they play. And I think now it's a lot of paint by numbers, isn't it? It's like, oh, we're not going to put a move on until we get to the 22, and if somebody like throws a miss pass or something like that, it's almost like the ref has to give a penalty because it's not in the script. I think nowadays it's overcoached and it's over like
too structured, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of players look to the coach like, "What do you want us to do?" Where I think the coach should stand back and go, "Why? What do we do here?" Because a lot of the time the coach wasn't as good a player as them. You know, he's not, and so we have to look at them and say, you know, you're a 10. I was a hooker. I don't know what to do here. What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
We should do right. Well, let's do that then and see, and trial by error. And I think there's not enough of that now in the game, and that's from like professional right the way down to the amateur. You sort of know when they get to a certain area that they're going to put on a move. And I think we've had this discussion before. The better teams, they all put the same moves on. Just the better teams are better executed.
Clinical. Yeah.
And do it. You know, it's going to be like a dummy scissor pop or face or, you know, something.
Kiwis, stuff like that.
Yeah. Out the back. It's just something. But it's just the fact that the better teams can, you know, execute, whereas the other teams sort of like might do it 5 or 6 times and it only comes off once. Where the others
for a bit and that. Yeah.
They'll bang it out all the time.
Yeah, no, that's fair, mate. So when you were at school then, and this because that team was phenomenal. Was there an avenue for you to play anywhere? Was Merseyside around? Was it an option for you?
I never played rugby at school. I just wasn't really into it, so I didn't really see all like Merseyside, Lancashire, North England, and all that stuff because I wasn't good enough, but also I wasn't sort of in that circle, so I didn't really know that existed.
Weren't interested either.
Yeah, it wasn't really my thing. It was only when a guy who's no longer with us called Colin Fillingham was at the Wids and he was starting on an under-16s team, and one of my mates said, "Do you fancy going?" And sort of me and Dave Quayle went along, and this other lad didn't turn up. He didn't bother. He stayed at West Park, a lad called Alex Holden. So me and Dave Quayle went along just to sort of see what was going on, and we sort of stayed and played a few games, and then that team sort of like semi-folded. So that was like sort of my route back into the Wids at like 16, and my dad obviously came back up then and sort of like had a look at it and seen it, and then it wasn't necessarily there for me, the representative, because I wasn't in the circle, I wasn't in that environment.
Was your eyes open to a different side of culture to rugby at that age, mate?
Not really. It was still
sort of like off the field stuff.
It's at 16. He was kind of. I didn't see the other side of the Colts culture, shall we say, and that's till I hit the Colts. Really, at 16, we turned up on a Sunday, and if we had 17, we were lucky. We had a scratch team. I think that team ended up, because we folded. Ended up, a few went to West Park, a few went to West Bank Rugby League, and sort of disbanded. But that was sort of like the next year. Then it was some of us got like asked to go back to playing the Colts, and we didn't, and that's it. But that was when sort of the culture and sort of what the Wids was about, and what we were trying to achieve as not just a team, but as a club and a culture. That was sort of like the seed being planted in my head of this is what it's about, the social side of it, and that we played rugby for 80 minutes, but now it's the 5 hours in the bar afterwards, and top of the town and so on. Yeah.
Right, so options leaving school were, mate, what were your options and what was the next path for Neil Street?
So I left school and went straight to Halton College, Riverside College as it's called now, and did 2 years catering there, chefing. I had me like heart set on being the next Jamie Oliver or Gordon Ramsay or Marco Pierre White. So that was me, but I was still playing rugby on a Saturday and working every other hour I could at the stadium at the Widnes ground. So I'd sort of like play rugby at home, or you'd be at the Wids, play and then get a lift down, or I'd work in the week or Friday or Sundays, and that was sort of it to try and get as much experience as I could chefing. I worked at the Everglades for a little bit. I worked at a couple of the pubs and that, just to get that experience chefing for those 2 years. So that was sort of me, just head down as chefing,
smashing the birds out.
Pretty much, yeah, constantly. So that was it
Did
for
you
two
ever feel
years.
restricted, Neil, with like menu choices or with like? I know we spoke a little bit about. I think you worked at the Evenwood for a bit, mate, didn't you?
Yeah,
And you were saying like the variation in food was very minimal, wasn't it? You were just
yeah,
doing the same thing. Is
yeah,
that frustrating as a chef, or does that allow
yeah.
you to master it?
If you do something like over and over again, you become a master in it, which I get. But
Yeah,
you want to learn at that age. You want to learn new things. Like you want to learn,
yeah,
like how they do this, how to do that. So sometimes it was kind of like, oh, we're doing 50 plates of this again or whatever. So it can be quite repetitive and quite boring, and you've got to sort of like mentally prepare yourself. Um, but that's how you learn. That's how you get like really good at it. Like your knife skills. Like people say to me, can you do all that fancy stuff? Yeah, I can because I've had to do it. I've had to learn how to use a knife and things like that, and I had to like you sharpen it and stuff like that. So, one it's funny because one kit bag was full of like chef whites and my knives, and the other one was like full of rugby boots and dirty mud. So yeah, it was two
yeah.
contrasting environments really.
And what's the culture like in a kitchen? Are chefs like really open to helping, or are you ever seen as a threat? Are you ever seen as a hindrance?
So when I left college at 18, I went to London for 10 months working
Yeah,
in a hotel. And I also did some like agency work in the city itself. And I obviously coming from a rugby background, it's quite intimidating when you walk into a changing room and there's like giants in there. You're thinking, wow.
yeah,
And they all sort of like giving you grief and what are you doing? And there's always that like bully or something. In the kitchen at first, it can be quite similar because you're thinking, wow, he's
yeah,
such a body, or this is this, or that's, it's quite intimidating. But once you get into the flow of it, as long as you keep up, you get the respect of it. It's like in anything, if you can do the job, they'll,
yeah,
they'll let you get on with it, But when you're getting like, screamed at for six plates that you're behind on, and you're hearing that the guy on the other side is like behind 10 plates, you're thinking, oh well, there's always someone worse than me, and he's going to
yeah,
get it, not me, sort of thing. But when people say it's pressured, it is because 1 minute sat in the restaurant, it feels like an hour in the kitchen. It goes like that. So it's that sort of that people don't realize. People like watch MasterChef and think, oh, it's easy that it's but go cook for 500 people. Same dish 100 times. It's got to look exactly the same. Doesn't go over the head chef's shoulder and probably towards you. So that's the type of environment it is because people want perfection. If you're going out for a nice meal, they want it to be a nice meal. They don't just want to be like, burnt chips or something like that. They want, the
yeah,
beef Wellington and all that, and lamb shank and all the scallops with the black pudding sauce and all that. That's what they want. That's what you've got to give them.
yeah. Mate. How did the opportunity to go to London come about? Is it through someone mutual? Was it a tutor? Was it how did that come about, mate?
Yeah, our old boss, a lady called Sandra, had been rang by an agency to go and work down there. And me and
Right.
my mate Rob Corns, who were working at the station, she said, they're looking for two chefs. Do you fancy it? And we went down, had an interview. It was just on the outskirts of the M25. It's a place called Theobald's Park in Cheshunt. It is. And we we went, and um, it was when I was there when England won the World Cup in 2003. So I was actually on duty, like in my chef whites, watching Johnny Wilkinson drop this goal with all these hotel guests, which was really surreal because like we sort of turned all the kitchen off and like saying we're going to watch I watched up until extra time, and then they were like, "Where are you going?" Like, I'm gonna have to go. Like, no, you won't. Stay out. So we ended up staying with these guests and watching him drop the goal, and then I was there for the parade. When they brought the cup home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was on one of the rows there watching that, which was like crazy because I'm thinking I'm 18 years old and I'm stood watching this, and I could just should probably be at the Widnes now drinking or something, but instead I'm watching this
Yeah, yeah.
parade, and it's mental. But that's how it came about, and I stayed there for 10 months, and then opportunities down there was sort of drying up, and I got more chance to come back up here. I got a couple of options, and it was like, I'll come back up here and see what happens. And I came back to work at the stadium then, at the Widnes ground.
Right, mate. So what was the term of contact? Was it a 10, 12-month thing? Was it just ongoing? Or?
It was just ongoing, but at the time it was initial style conferencing, and they were kind of, we went down there and told, oh yeah, he's safe, he's absolutely fine. But after a while, we kind of semi got the feeling that they were moving people on to different hotels, and there was like the head chef was leaving, the second chef was leaving, looking to bring other people in, and I had been speaking to somebody throughout the week, and I kind of just said to him, I said, listen, I said, I'm going to come home. This isn't for me. A little bit of homesickness maybe as well.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, couldn't really go anywhere or anything. Couldn't drive at the time. Met some like really amazing people like down there, and I still speak to some of them now and that. But it was kind of like I came home on like the Friday, and I was training on the following Tuesday at the Wids, because it was like I just get back into this and see what happens. And I think I was working on the following Friday at the stadium. But yeah, that was pretty much it. 10-month stint.
So what happened between that and the stadium? So you left the stadium to go down there, and then you've managed to come back?
Yeah, I was only like a waiter and a porter at the stadium before I went down there. So my first real proper chef job was down in Theobald's down in London. So I jumped straight out of college. I'd done a couple of competitions at college for chefing and things like that, and then I jumped straight into it when I went down there, then came back.
So we got real serious really quick. I imagine them from college, mate. Yeah.
My first week was just on prep, just on veg prep and meat prep, and just seeing what I could do and showing what, because I was like trained, whereas one of the other lads, they'd been teaching him, so like I could do things that he couldn't. And he was like, can you show me that? I was like, yeah, sure. So like he would make soups different ways I would, or he'd like trim the meat up certain ways, or he wouldn't do just the little things that you taught at college, that are sort of like the finesse of it. I was shown that way, he wasn't. So that was like kind of like my first week of just like, today you're just gonna prep this for 12 hours. Sound, yeah, there we go, bang, done. So that was like literally
semi-testing you as well, innit?
Yeah, just seeing where they need to put you in, what department and that. Because obviously I went as a commis chef, which is the bottom, so I was doing like starters and desserts. But over time, then they sort of get confident in it, so you get to sort of like do like the pass, or they serve the food, or the grill and things like that. So that was kind of like where we ended up.
Yeah, some people are just happy being the comms, aren't they? Just happy smashing starters and desserts out.
Yeah.
Right, mate. So you come home, you're back at training Tuesday. Is it like you were never away? But is there any changes there?
There was a couple of things. There was I can't remember the details, because it's just sort of like semi rolled into one. But there was some new players, because we were all kind of like older, so we'd all come out with Colts. We weren't Colts anymore, or I wasn't. The Colts were Sunday. So it was like you're training, Tank was coaching. So you kind of like, you went along on the days, and you were hoping that you were going to get picked. And we only had like 2 teams really, and a vets team. They slowly morphed into the thirds. So if you didn't kind of get picked in the first or second team, you were put like on the reserve list. And that was kind of like, because we'd gone from having all the first team, second team, not a second team even at one point, just the first team and the vets, and then the Colts. So that kind of then grew. We had a second team. Just little things started to change around the club. I think Spike and Chris had gone to Blackpool, and they had a big say. They did the kids' discos that kept the club alive, and that's how I kind of like helped out. I'd be going into the gym and you come in here and things like that. Like Andy Wayne wasn't coach anymore. He'd left because he got like me involved in the training on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. But I remember a lad called Richie Dennett, Sidewinder.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, me and him would go up and train on a Tuesday and Thursday on our own, just as a something to do. 16, 17,
Yeah.
and we ended up kind of like being dragged into the training with the first team, and we got. I always remember this because it sticks with me because it's something that I always say it should never happen. I got told that me and Richie shouldn't be training with the first team because it's not right. It's not a, and we were like, why not? And then we mentioned it one day to Andrew Wayne, and Andrew Wayne said, "You'll train till I tell you won't." And we were like, "Yes, Andy, we'll train." And we trained every week, and it became that thing of, if we weren't there and he seen us on the Saturday, where was you on Tuesday? Where was you on Thursday? Oh, I was working. Did you tell anybody? No, right, not good enough. You know what I mean? He started to like put that culture on us and that thing of Tuesdays and Thursdays you train, like, going to the gym, and like Richie Barracuff and Borgie like kind of semi took me up to the wing and sort of like helped me a lot. And then when I came back, it was the sort of same thing. It was like I'd never been away really. I was still getting picked on and abused off Aldo and stuff like that.
So just this divide that which is basically what it was. Whoever said that to you, was there ever something in you that thought I'm gonna change that, or was that just in you, like, is your approach in you anyway, and that doesn't really affect you?
My approach is Tuesdays and Thursdays. Realistically, we're all one club. Right, until them teams get picked.
Yeah,
I'm a Wids player, you're a Wids player, they're Wids players, we're all Wids players. Until that team get picked on that Saturday, that's what we are. We all train together. Yes, on a Thursday you have to run through moves, and I get that, totally understand that. But I was getting coached by like them players were telling me to do things, helping me with things. When I was going to Colts training, I wasn't getting that. I was sort of being held to, you and Richie go hold them shields with them three other lads, and they're just going to run at you all night.
yeah.
I don't think anybody gets better with that. You've got to do it. And they used to say to me, right, nearly going on the scrum machine. And I'd be like, what? Like, yeah, you're going on get in with the front row. And I'd be like, going in at hooker with like Sai and like Vickers or somebody else. And we'd have like the back row and the second row in it and be hitting the scrum machine and put your feet here, do this. I was getting all that sort of stuff that the other Colts weren't getting. I was getting that. Then I was being like shown how to not speak to people, but like that person's really struggling with this out and back. We're going to show them how to do it. We're going to walk through them and stuff like that. And I got that like firsthand. So I always wanted to sort of make sure that I passed that on or gave that to people, because at the end of the day, we're all there to play for the Wids and win. So that's what I think. That's how I think it should have been done, and that's how I always tried to do it.
No, I agree, mate. Because we fundamentally, like you said before, rugby is rugby.
Yeah.
If it's done a little bit slower or a little bit messier, it's irrelevant. Because the philosophy is meant to be the four senior teams, including senior Colt, play the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether you run the lead line on a Kiwi for the Colts or for the second team doesn't matter, because the first and third team player is going to be running the same line, albeit slightly different. But that's where like your first or your second team centre should be saying, listen, just straighten up here and then bang off 1 foot here.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is, whether it's like, hold your run a bit more or come a bit like, for me, big lad, I was slow. Come forward a bit, start earlier.
Yeah.
Come tighter and then kick off rather than too wide and kick off. Like that, they're the times to do it, aren't they? To get rid of them errors.
Yeah.
But I'm sure most clubs are like that, but
yeah,
people still need to wear and see it, don't they?
Absolutely.
It's not just at the Wids, like. So when did you start growing into a team? When did you find your play sort of thing, play regular, train regular, enjoy it?
When I was in the third team like every other week or every couple of weeks, everything. I was just kind of doing it because I was there. It was nothing else. Yeah. It was like you go to the Wids Tuesday, Thursday, you train, you watch a bit of rugby on the telly or whatever. Saturday you turn up. If you need a player, you're there. If not, you sit and watch the first or whatever. And then there was a third team game and we had like 12 subs on the bench. And it was like, you can have 3. And then my dad sort of said at the bar one day, we need a fourth team. So it was kind of like decided that my dad would run a fourth team and I was asked to be captain of it to sort of get people involved.
Spearhead it, yeah.
Yeah. Um, like,
Bear
you
in
know,
mind, though, you've come from a club where there was barely a second team,
yeah,
and now you're leading the front with your dad on a fourth team.
yeah, which was like really, really like mental because we didn't have a kit, we didn't have players, we got a scraps team and we went to what's the place in Lee? Beginning with T.
Where is it?
By Lee, beginning with T. What's it called?
Tarleton.
No. Where was Dave Peake from?
Oh, Tilsley.
Tilsley. I couldn't remember what that was called.
Yeah,
We went there and
yeah.
in our first game, I got run over by Simon Knox, who used to play for Widnes, and Paul
Oh,
Dowley played.
yeah.
Yeah. Callum played, and he literally like ran over me about 4 times because I used to pick the team with my dad, and whatever wasn't available or wasn't a player position, I would play it. So that season, I played every position, and it was kind of like we won our second or third game, and my dad had to ref games, and we had to get cousin to ref, and come the end of the season, we had like 12 strong players and like people drafted in, and
You playing regularly, yeah.
yeah. We played. We laugh about it now, but we played on the middle pitch on Prescott Field.
Yeah.
We played on that when it was frozen because which church had arrived. They had 20 odd players, and we had 20 odd players because the third team game got called off, and we played on it. And about 5 minutes into the warm up, the ref said, "Well, I'm here, you're here, we're playing it." But you could feel it how hard it was underneath. And lads were like, so it was like we played it, and some of them lads who I got to play are still in that like team. Like we went to Moore, and Tom Griffiths will tell you that it was his greatest ever game, and it lasted all of 12 minutes, I think. So that's it.
When Gav or
Yeah,
Phil tackled someone or
we
stepped someone or something.
we I kicked the ball through for Gav to chase because he wanted it, and the lad caught it. Gav out and tackled him, and his knee like dislocated or disappeared, and I was like, there was a bit of commotion, and I've gone over thinking, what a quickie score is, go back to the club. My dad's like, Neil, this is off, and I've gone, why? Oh my God, he's got no knee. It's like just gone, and that was it. We're like 21-0 up after 12 minutes, and there's a couple of pictures on the WIDS website, and they're not flattering to me or Tom. One I'm on the floor, like on all fours. One he's like, I think he looks like he's dropped it.
Yeah.
But we said it was our best game ever, but yeah, it ended, and that lad, it was his first ever game of rugby. He was in the pub the night before, and somebody dared him to have a game, so he said, yeah, well, and dislocated his knee.
His knee.
Yeah.
There we go, in that. So what's the justification like come season's end, mate, when you look there and you have truly established an extra team, basically, and but lads are enjoying playing there, lads were choosing to play fourth over some other teams, weren't they? And
yeah, it was. We had a conversation, and I was stepping away from being captain, but my dad was still going to be coach because it got to the stage where I was probably a little bit better than the fourth team. Like I was kicking goals, I was playing 10, I was playing 9. I was like, it was easy for me, to do it at that level because it was like really old fellas and lads who really
it's social rugby, mate, isn't it?
Yeah. So I kind of like said, I'm not going to play third. I'm going to step up into the thirds, and I sort of became like the utility player. But the talk was that we need to keep it going. We need to keep it going, and there was talk at one point because it was like the 50th year that we were going to get 5 teams. Because lads were starting to turn up, and we were saying, how many does the fourth team got? And they'd go, we've got 8 subs. It started to grow and it started to get to that stage. I think, can we do? And then a couple of times we were talking about it, and it was a case of if the second team takes 2 subs, if the third team take 2 subs, and the fourth team take 2 subs, we'll give them extra subs to this fifth team, and we'll go with it. And like lads would like come out with work to play, and they were saying, oh, well, I'll have a game, I'll have a game and stuff. If it's just fourth team, like Ray Galloway and Eddie Beckett, they both played. My dad coached them in the Colts. The lads appeared out of nowhere to play.
Yeah.
And it just sort of like, it grew into that. And it was a shame, really, when it died off when lads went to other clubs. But it was sort of like this, well, we need to keep it going. It did. And I think it went for about 2 or 3 years on. But then other people
The
started.
impression I got of people leaving, sorry to interrupt,
No,
was
right.
they felt they were better, didn't they? And it
Yeah,
transpired when they were there or thereabouts at the right level.
yeah.
No offence to anybody,
No, no. A
but
lot of the
that's what
lads,
happened, wasn't it?
yeah, a lot of the lads that left could have played higher, but other people were like interfering higher up who had
The
no
food
right to
chain.
interfere.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a couple of the people who were connected to the first team would come along and change things in the teams and would cause problems. And then
Yeah.
you suddenly these 5 lads that had come out of the woodwork to play were being told they couldn't play, and then it was like, well, why can't they play? Oh, well, he's told me you can't, and he said, okay, but I've got to do this and
Yeah.
stuff. And then they were like, I'm not playing for the Wids, Ballstrom and stuff. And it's kind of like people went above the station and started doing things that they shouldn't have been doing and stuff. And that was one of the reasons why it started to fold.
Yeah. See, when you're in the thick of it, mate, you don't understand the politics, do you?
No.
Like,
but when you're in selection,
when you're trying to play serious rugby again, no offence to Boss and thirds is serious to be fair, but do you know what I mean? It's more social than serious, but there's still an element to it.
Yeah.
I always think if the first team coach wants to be involved with the Susie semi, should be, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
Not overly dictating, but he should say, listen, that lad there that's playing well, could you possibly play him here for half an hour and see what he's like? He should have input, but not beyond the second team for me.
Well, that's exactly what my dad and Mike Ryan did with that lad I told you at the start.
Yeah.
They wanted him to play a certain position to see what he was like, and he wasn't good enough. I completely agree with it. I think if whoever the first team coach is, if he comes to the second team coach and says, look, I want him to play for this position for this amount of time, and then I want you to be brutally honest with me as the second team coach might come on and say 50-50 about it with you. Do you want to come and watch him when you haven't got a game and see what you think? Or he might turn around and say,
I'll leave him with us for a bit. Yeah.
Leave him. Give us can we have him for 4 weeks and I'll tell you at the end there. Because there's no harm in that. Because he might be.
Not even a first teamer playing himself back into form.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah. And people have, people trust certain people's their opinions. What do you think about him? You know what I mean? We've had the conversation before. I've had the conversation with Josh, other lads. Do you think he's a good player? You've got people whose opinions you trust. You think, if he thinks he's good, he's good. Like some of the people I'll touch on me want to 15 later. When I say the name, people will go, "Oh, yeah, he's a good name," just by the name, because they'll know he's a good one. But you just know them sort of players. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes people get too hung up in like with us. What happened with us a lot of time was that first team would interfere with the third team, and I'd be like, "Well, the hell do you know what? Do you even know this lad? You've never had interaction with him. Why are you interfering all of a sudden and stuff?" And so that was, but as you say, it happens at all rugby clubs.
Yeah, it does, mate. And along with playing rugby union, mate. Excuse me, you were playing rugby league as well. So talk to us about who you played for, who was around that team, what got you playing for who you were playing for.
Well, I played for the infamous Runcorn Vikings, which was sort of like it was a community club set up by Widnes. And a couple of us went along from the Wids, and that couple grew.
How did you hear about it, mate?
So it was in the paper. It was in like the weekly news. It was just like in there, and a couple of us were talking about it one day at training, and I think it started sending me out as a bit of a joke. So I think, we're going to go over there and that, and then we went, and then it sort of as I say, like it grew. Like we got you over there, Chris Morgan, and I think Gav Hatton came, and a couple of other lads, and it sort of like grew from this. Like, I'm not going to say joke to a serious team, who were like,
Yeah.
had some serious good players, and I'm still friends with a lot of the lads now, like Chris Leach, Rob Calland, Ian Chevaux, people like that. I still keep in touch with Tim Leach. To put this is how old it was. I think Matty Fozzard, who plays for Widnes now, I think he was about 7. Running round and stuff, and now he's off playing for Widnes, and I still see him now. And I remember his little brother being born, and I said to him the other week in the rally, I said, "Are you the youngest, Foz?" And he went, "Yeah." And I went, "I remember you being born." And he was like, "Is you really that old?" It was like, "Get out your bad, don't come in here again." So yeah, Runcorn. But from that, then Chris Leach, being the salesman that he is, sold me the idea of going to Farnworth, because I wasn't playing at the Wids at the time. I couldn't get in the second team. The third team wasn't really there. So I thought, I'll go and have a laugh at see what Farnworth is like. And I stayed the whole year. Unfortunately, we didn't have a playing squad. We had about 16 lads every week, or 15 lads, and we got relegated out of the Prem. But I stayed the whole year. A couple of people were there, like Tony Fretwild, Kyle. They were at Farnworth with us, giving it a go, but they left to go back the Wids because the second team were then struggling. But I said, no, I made a commitment. I'm gonna stick to it. And I stayed and played the whole season at Farnworth and made some like lifelong friends up there and that. And like it was one of those things where, we'd go away with like 12 men, 13 men, but you'd go back the wings, and it was just as good, sometimes if not better, than when we were having the social side of the Wids, because everyone was just drinking Guinness or doing the double gadget after Jeds, or just having a laugh. And it was different because you were drinking with different people, you were playing with different people, and you see him now, like young Harry Smith playing at Wigan now. His dad Biffa playing with him. Ben Davies at St Helens, Spender's lad. You see him playing. There's other ones who you think, but I remember when you were like this 5-year-old running around with the ball, and the ball was bigger than you, and now you're like, Super League,
ripping it up.
Yeah.
And how mad is it to see how much they've grown? Like they've got their own, clubhouse, the function rooms up and running, all that done with what we said before, volunteers and goodwill, isn't it, and faith and.
Unbelievable. I always like laugh because I still see Atty and the Atwood now when we do our curry clubs and that. I remember being kicked out of the middle room at the Winged Club at like 7 o'clock for 6 women to play bingo. I used to think it was a joke. I was like, is this a joke? And they're like,
because they had the little room with the snooker tables, didn't they? And they had like the function room, didn't they?
The middle bit. Do you remember the middle bit with the telly?
Oh yeah,
that
do
bit.
now, yeah.
And these women would come in, and I'd be like, this is a joke, this isn't it, lads? And they were like, no, get out. And I'm like, where are we going? And like, drink up, we're going here, or we're going to Griffin, or we're going to. And I couldn't get my head around it. I'd be like, are we get up, move. That's Betty's seat or whatever. And now you go there and they've got 10 pitches, brilliant change of facilities.
Driving again, aren't they?
Yeah. And the minis and junior section. And like you say, it's all down to that word volunteers.
Yeah, same with that little stingers, mate. You see it, every kid's got the little stinger kit on. The dads or mums are involved, aren't they? And
they've got a masters team.
There, mate.
They've got a women's masters team. It's fantastic to see.
Yeah, no, they are. They cracked it, like, but it all comes from them days when you're scratching. Like, I remember a Wids game being off, and you rung and said, "How quick can you get here?" I go, "Well, literally, Matt, me dad." Next minute, you're on the corner of Royal Ave with 3 fellas I've never met before in a car.
Yeah.
And we're away at Aston or whatever. I remember them days you struggled. And
can you get players?
Those other games, you just get them anywhere, and it's a body. And that's why them days now are as good as they are, because you hardcore, that's just pulling people together, innit?
Yeah.
So what? You come back the Wids from Farnworth, don't you?
Yeah.
You win personal awards. You've established that team now, because it's still there as well. The third team, it's strong, and Sharon's kicked on with them. We done our coaching badges together, mate. With Dan Newall. So talk about your journey coming back. Mention a few of them things. Talk us how it all works.
I kind of came back because at Farnworth we kind of got an influx of players, and it was like because I was just like covering the wing or covering whatever. I didn't really have a position in rugby league. I was just like thrown anywhere. And I did sort of the pre-season, and then I kind of semi had a chat with like Spender, who was the coach, and I just said, realistically, I'm probably not going to play, am I, mate? And he said, you're more than welcome to be every week. I said, I'm just honest with him. He said, I'm going to go back the Wids and play in the thirds, and then I sort of that's how I went. That's how I left Farnworth, but I still kept in contact with them because they were just about to go to summer rugby. So I sort of said, I'll be back for some rugby, and I sort of then came back and I was like into the fourth team, and then I kind of went into the third team, and then it was kind of like, right, you're going to go on the wing, and you're going to go full back, and I was like, why? And they were like, oh, we think you can semi-do a job for us. So for about 18 months, I was like the second choice full back in the third team, stroke winger. And it was like, oh, you can kick goals, so you can do that. And I was okay. So I think there's about 2 years worth of pitches where I've either got 15 or 14 on my back. And then over time, it sort of like became evident that I wasn't very quick, and I didn't really know what I was doing at fullback. So I was in a second team game, and Juzzy, so this is why I blame him for it, got sin binned, and he was playing hooker, and there was nobody to play hooker. And John Parker was captain, and I said, go on, I'll do it, because we didn't have a hooker, and I went hooker and that was it. Then it was sort of like, right, boom, for the hooker, and I sort of stayed there for, so it's Juzzy's fault, really. And then I've just sort of stayed there, and then we sort of went through a bit of a purple patch in the third team, with loads of players, and we had like, they got to the final, and there was a bit of controversy about that because they dropped lads to play in first teamers, and there was all controversy about that. And then I think
is that someone not being strong enough, Neil?
it was somebody wanting to win the final, and what happened was karma bit him because the opposition put out the first team and like did them. That was when I was like fourth team. That was when I was fourth team captain. But then a couple of years later, then
the Halbro Cup thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then a couple of years after that, I was just in the third team, second team here and there. That was it, just ticking over, And Chris Whitfield was third team captain, and he got injured, and I captained like 1 or 2 games for him, and then Derek Dyer became the captain, and then he got injured, and it was like the last 3 captains had all been injured. Like Dave Brady had been injured before Chris, and nobody semi wanted this captaincy because it sort of was ending people's careers. Yeah, it was cursed. And Tony Ross did it for like the back end of the season, and it got to the point where he wasn't playing lads. He was like, lads were turning up, and he wasn't making subs.
They were there though. Like they were like there to play.
Up, but they weren't playing. And I one game basically said to him, you need to get these lads on, because it's about getting the game. They give the game up, and we're getting beat away at Sefton. And me and him semi had an argument. And he went, well, you go off then. And I went, that's the best decision you've made all day. And I went off and brought somebody on. And then for the rest of the season, he wouldn't pick me. To the point where John Ratcliffe, who was rugby chairman, had to get involved and say, you have to give him a reason why you won't play him. Tell me why you won't play him. When I told Racket the reason behind it, he went mad. He went ballistic because he said lads are ready to play rugby. And then at the end of the season, then we had a meeting. The third team Illuminati, as we called ourselves, like Nicky Preston, Dave Braid, Silky, me, and it was like, who's going to be captain? We need a captain. Rossi didn't want to do it anymore, and they all sort of looked at me and went, "You do it."
I was going to say, is that when everyone just goes like that?
Pretty much, yeah. You do it, and I went, "Okay." So my name got put forward to the committee, and the committee said no. Said he's not doing it, and then it was kind of like pushed back, and now the chairman at the time said no, he's not doing it. And then about a week later, I was approached in the club and was given a reason as to why I wasn't going to be captain. And then by the end of the night, as I was walking out, they went, "Congratulations, you're captain of the thirds," because nobody else wanted it. So I ended up being captain of the thirds because everyone who said you're captain, no, Street is captain. So that's how I ended up being captain of the thirds that year.
Yeah, it's just started off sour though, mate, done it?
Yeah, yeah. But people, it's nothing. Lads, I was very clear with everybody if I was going to be captain. Everyone's going to pay the subs. Everyone's going to be a member. If you turned up on a Saturday, that was it. They were playing. You played. Yeah. So, 20 minutes and that's it. You got 20 minutes. So everybody got a game because that's what they were there for. Work commitment. Like I was going to, because I knew I was changing my job.
Yeah.
Like, the way come June, you're going to be working every Saturday. I thought I was doing every Sunday. It was like, no. So then I had to Clubman of the Year. It was like when I was 13 captain, I made sure everybody played. But it was quite funny because it was that year for the third team somewhere. And I feel like, for the the positions, the tries, everything. I can tell you every game. And I think there's only 3 or 4 lads in it who played, disappeared off. All them 63 have played 20 games for the club, which I'm quite proud of, to be honest.
Yeah.
And some of them were our mates in our group and things like that. And that was quite one of our things that I could turn around and say, friends, I've played at least one game with everyone. We all talk about, Waterloo, me missing bang in front of the sticks. We're getting beat 17-0 and it's like, right, take a penalty. I missed it right in front of the stick. Mike Jones regularly reminds me of that. Anthony, a lad who was from Latvia, he just turned up and played every week. He was fantastic. We put him at fullback this one game, and he jokingly went like that to catch the ball, and the ball hit him straight in the face. And he went, "Oh, Neil, I caught the ball in my face." And we regularly say that to each other. And it was just a good year. But we didn't win a game from February. We got beat from February all the way through to the end of the season, and we got beat away at Sefton in the cup, the first round of the cup, and they didn't play a game then until the final. They got a walkover every week, and I sit there. So now I think to myself, we'd have won that. We'd have won that cup because they got beat by LSH in the final, and I knew we could have beat them. So that's my me hang up of that year. I think if we'd have just beat them, got to be 21-9 or something like that. I think it was a close game, and but that was my year was 13. My official year was 13 captain. But that's when I was
heavy, isn't it, mate? It's heavy.
Yeah.
Right. You played a bit of football, mate, as well with a good group of mates. AFC Rec was born, wasn't it? And that's what you recall, weren't you? AFC Rec?
Yeah. It was. Yeah. They started it as a team. A lad called Jason Scadders did it, and then I came later on, sort of. But I used to turn up on a Sunday, and I would regularly a lad called Paul Derbyshire. I would regularly say to him, "Don't start me. I don't want to play. I'm just there just in case." And I please don't start me. And a couple of times, me and a lad called Paul Travis and Carl Pierce would be stood there. I'm going, he's starting me. You two better have a word with him because I don't want to play. I was just sort of there to make up numbers. And we'd regularly stand there and laugh and I'd have to go over to Dale Ward and say, "Dale, you're captain. You better tell him not to start me," because things like that. And it's still some of the things that went on with that was unbelievable. Lads would turn up drunk Sunday morning, turn up in the car, get out, and would be like, "Where have you been?" "Don't know. I'm here though, aren't I?" And he'd have one Adidas boot, one Nike boot, and things like that. It was just
another property box in his boot.
just proper mental stuff going on.
Yeah,
But that was Sunday League football.
I was going to say that is what it's about, isn't it? Really, right, mate. And obviously you've been away from the club for a while now. So what's life been like since rugby, mate? What have you been up to, and what is the career now?
Uh, I'm a I'm a customer support manager now for a company, and I'm into that basically. I'm into customer service side of it, supporting, developing people and things like that. That's what I do for a living. Um, I mostly spend my time either watching Widnes with my dad or going to transfer and getting shouted at by Dan Speakman and his gang of PTs.
Boys.
Yeah, gang of bullies. Yeah, I'm not going to say bullies because Laura might be listening. She'll get me head in. But yeah, so no, that's how I spend my time now, and just trying to catch up with friends when I can. And I think COVID changed a lot, and you can't always go in the club every week anymore. Unfortunately, we're not Andy Griff.
Yeah.
You've got to cut your ties at some point, haven't you? Get out there.
Well, we used to talk through the fence, mate, because when I was in work, you'd be on your marathon walks, wouldn't you? And we'd have a little catch up and that, mate. So, talk to me about Transfit then. How was you introduced? Because you'd already started dropping the weight, hadn't you, before Transfit?
Yeah, I was. I got Dom
Not
messaged me.
that you were big, by the way. That's not what I'm saying. But you
No,
dropped a lot of weight,
yeah,
didn't you?
Dom had messaged me years ago about going, and I just didn't really get into it, and then I kind of went. I seen it one day, it popped up, and I kind of messaged him and just said, "Listen, can I come to a Transfit class?" And I did, and then I signed up for a course, and then I stopped a bit because of the training and the coaching and things like that just got in the way, so I couldn't really go when I wanted to go. And then I was doing an online course with him for a couple of months. Just he was setting me.
Is that harder than going that, Neil? What suits you?
Oh, it
I
suited me
imagine there's a bit
originally.
more accountability face to face, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
at home, the way Dom works is Dom obviously does your measurements, does your pictures and things like that, so you can see it
yeah,
yourself. When you go to the gym, it's more like a social thing. It's not really like when I go to the gym. It's not. I don't see it as going to the gym. I see it as going like and doing the exercise with the gang of lads that are there. Tom O'Neill, Andy Clark. These lads are there in the morning. Jack Galooly, Kizza. There's those types of lads. Those lads are there, so there's that social aspect with them. So I still, have that interaction with the rugby lads, and I still chat to them. But when I was working at home, it was a lot easier to just sort of like, I'll do my workout in the afternoon, when I've done all my work and stuff. Whereas now I either go at like 5 in the morning or late at night just to do it. And it just sort of like, it's one of those where if I don't do it, like I feel bad, like I haven't had time to do it today. So now I feel really, really bad because I was going to go when I finished work earlier, but I've had other stuff to do. So now I'm thinking to myself, I'll have to double up tomorrow, to sort of like counteract it and that stuff. And then like on Wednesday, I was going to go tick and pass with the Masters, but I've got a thing there, so I'll have to do that instead. So I kind of like, I feel guilty if I miss it. You know what I mean? I feel like I've let myself
but
down.
You've put the shift in, haven't you? So you want to keep doing it, don't you? So the get-up's a quality setup now from Dom and Lauren, isn't it? It's in the old DW people know it as, or the JJB if you're old school like us, mate. And it's a fully kitted out, licensed hub. Everyone and anyone goes there virtually, don't they? There are obviously other gyms available, but Dom's really stepped the game up, hasn't he? And got stuff going on there with Lauren. They've smashed it. So everything's going well there then, mate, isn't it? And what's next for Neil Street?
So my next adventure is I've got the Lorette tour coming up in first week in October. Finished planning that today, pretty much stuff that. So we've got that planned for me. And then I've got literally nothing planned for next year so far.
No gigs, mate. No
gigs, no nothing.
No.
Me and our Steve were talking about it the other day. We need a couple of gigs to look forward to. So we just with other things and stuff like that, and him going away and me not being available and stuff, we just haven't. I mean, the last gig we went to was the Knoll gig that we saw you at that we don't remember. So we kind of like put ourselves.
Was it?
Yeah, that was the last gig we went to.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah, we've not been one for a while, so we've got a hit list that we're going to be working on soon. So
Right. Well, it's your boy's fault. That's what I'm into now, really. So, well, I say that you owe me a lot of money.
I owe you it, mate. I owe you it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But no, it's like obviously without you, probably would have done it a lot later. Well, hopefully I would have done it a lot later, but it's like it's just a different buzz, isn't it?
yeah.
Like smashing someone playing rugby will never be replicated.
Mhm.
Like I didn't score a lot of tries later on, but scoring tries and making contributions won't be replicated. But it's the next best thing.
Yeah. I think for me,
When the day is good as well, because it's
yeah,
the whole day. It's not just a gig and that, isn't it?
my best weekend was the Storm Roses at Wembley. That was
Yeah.
my
And
best
then Elton
weekend
John at home.
ever. Yeah, I didn't go Elton John.
Yeah.
I was a
I
mess.
did with Mike. Yeah.
I was distraught at home after being,
Yeah.
but
What a weekend, though.
yeah, I can remember being up at 3/4 of the way up at Wembley and hearing Neil, 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 and seeing you running up the stairs with two frozen strawberry daiquiri cocktails going well
He's
kneed,
chuffed.
and like thinking, where's he got them from? And then like seeing like a stall at the end and being like
Yeah.
sat with our Steve drinking these like frozen strawberry daiquiris in Wembley. I'm like, I'm about
Daiquiris.
to see the
Yeah.
Storm Roses play here. This is it. We've peaked, you know,
We have. Weather
yeah.
was unreal as well, wasn't it?
You couldn't have asked for a better weekend, mate. Great company.
No.
The only problem is George Lang took us those dodgy bars with Johnny Preston. You know, good job Jimmy was there. Otherwise, we'd have been eaten alive, mate. Me and you, telling you.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like we was anyway, to be honest with
Yeah,
you. But no, it was. It was a class weekend, like you said. Good company as well, mate, wasn't it? So that time of the chat, I've got a few daft questions for you, mate. So,
yeah,
any pre-match superstitions?
uh, yeah. It was a can of Red Bull and a bottle of Lucozade Sport, followed by reading either the Wids program
Yeah.
or going over watching like an old video of like Widnes or something like that before I went to Wids. As daft as that, just as a sort of, I'll
Yeah.
just watch a bit of this. That was it.
Right. That's fair enough. You might not know who they are, but you might know the club and position they played at. But and the word what I'm about to say is different for everybody.
Mhm.
Depends how you take it. But toughest player you played with and against.
Toughest player I've played with is Crack. Crack was tough because he was 60 odd years old and he was getting smashed every week. The toughest
Yeah.
player I've ever played against. There was a number 8 for LSH. I can't remember his name. A big guy, bald, and
Is it
he
Fingy Ferns? Was he in and out the first team? He's like an RFU coach developer.
no, he was in all. He was in the third team. He was there for
Right.
years. He was massive, and um, we played. The third team played, and we mixed them a bottle. We kind of like they put a load of ringers in, right, and he just got on with it. He got smashed. But a lot of first teamers played, and you know there was a few people celebrating. And the third team last,
Yeah.
and he just got on with it. And in the game, he shook everybody's hand and said, "Right, see you at our place." Like you know, like laughing, knowing full well that the first
Yeah.
team weren't going to be there. So I forget his name. If Crack was here now, he'd have his phone number and tell you the
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, them two definitely.
Yeah. So your favourite away ground you've played at?
Ooh.
Imagine you've been to some shitholes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've played. We've ever played. I'm gonna cop out here and say I've got two.
Right.
One is Mossley Hill, right? And if you've ever played at
I
Mossley
didn't
Hill,
play there.
anybody's ever played at Mossley Hill in the third team.
The Leisure Centre.
No. So Mossley Hill have a club, and you have to walk through a park to the pitch, and for it's on different levels. The pitch,
Pictures. Right.
yeah. So it's like one corner's up here, and then it dips, and then it dips again. And we took some of like some first teamers there once to play because they didn't have a game, and we said, "Listen, just come." and Kev Ledbetter couldn't work out what was going on because the pitch was where it was, and Anthony was there, and he was like, "This isn't real." This like, and I think Anthony at one point was like questioning if he'd like gone into the twilight zone because of the way the pitch was. Like a lad called Peter Logan was playing, and he was like, "This can't be real. This isn't real." And I was like, "This is 13 rugby lads getting it," and that like confused people. And the other one was Merseyside Police away because they played at the bottom of the river, don't they? It was always on no matter what. December, every game was off a part of my game, but it was because like it was always on, and it was always a good laugh. And even like it could be raining and the pitch would be dry, and you'd be like, "How was this dry?" The way they looked after it and everything. It wouldn't be muddy, and you could wear moldies there 365 days a year. Do you know what I mean? You didn't have to wear your long studs because it was hard. So probably them two places.
Right, if you could go back and tell a younger Streety something, what would it be?
Stay away from 2 or 3 people at the Wids. That would be my advice to me. And don't sweat the small stuff because it don't matter. Yeah, that would be it.
Right, mate. We're out on the piss. We're in somewhere where it's open mic night or karaoke, mate. The mic's in your hand. What are you giving us?
Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis. Crowd favourite. You know what I mean? They can sing half, I can sing half. No problem.
Nice little blend.
Yeah.
Right, mate. And if you're willing to, a 1 to 15 that you played with.
Right.
And you can start where you want to start. I'm
going to start at the back. And I'll obviously give a bit of reasoning behind it. I have got a list of maybes and a list of should be's, but I'll start at the back. I've got Rizza, Andy Riley. Now, I played a couple of games with him when I sort of like guested for the Colts team when they didn't have enough players, so we kind of went along and just like me and a few others and just played. And I was a couple of years older than them, obviously, but sort of stayed out of the way and got on with it. Rizza was a freak. Is a freak. If you go watch him now at Sedgley, he can do things that are just unbelievable. Like if he'd have stayed at the Wids, he'd have scored 100 tries a season, and that's no disrespect to the. No,
it is what it is. It's fact, isn't it?
Yeah. To him, and he's a top lad as well. Me and him always have a chat and that. 14 is a bit controversial, but I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to give you a good reasoning behind it. It's actually Josh Payton. So we've touched on this before, but for somebody who came to rugby so late, he's got an unbelievable rugby knowledge. And I think we've talked about this before we obviously started recording. This is that when he first told me that he started rugby so late, I genuinely thought he was winding me up. And I was like, no, shut up, play off, it's a wind up, don't. And he's like, no, I really haven't. If you say to him, oh, what's the what's the Toulon's second team winger? Who, it's somebody, and he had this for his tea, and you're like, how do you know that, Josh? His rugby knowledge is ridiculous.
Yeah.
When we were doing the third team, he could have easily stepped up to the second team, but he didn't. He stayed in the third team with us every week, and he was outstanding. He played scrum half, he played fullback, he played 10, he played anywhere. And I've got a lot of respect for Josh because he could have gone, higher. He's probably the most decorated player in the club.
He's got to be up there. Yeah,
I'm willing to put money on that because I don't think anybody's won. He's probably won 10 individual honours. 10 team honours, including the juniors, the Colts, seniors. He scored the hat trick in the final. And I don't mind telling people this at the time. Me and Dan Newall used to push him for first team all the time. And Andy Mack said he wasn't good enough. So, that was, and I'm willing to have that conversation with anybody. He's a far better player than people let on. So, and if he doesn't put me in his next 1 to 15, I will egg his windows, definitely. So, me 13, a bit of a wild card this, and people probably don't know that I've played with him a bit, but Steve Burke. or Mr Burke, as he's known to probably the younger viewers and listeners from Peter and Paul. Played with him at Farnworth, played with him at the Wids in the third team. Just a freak of a player. There's nothing of him, yet he hits like an absolute freight train and just runs lines that don't exist. And it's just, you can tell he's played at a top level. So
trying to get Berkey on. He's not keen, but I'll talk about.
He will. He'll do it. Get a few pints in him in the ringer bells. He'll definitely do it. I'll drag him on.
But he will at the prices up there.
Yeah, he will. Yeah. Teacher, you see, he's got loads of money. That's what it is. Only works part-time hours to full-time pay.
Yeah.
So me 12 is another Riley, Matty. Played with him from in the Colts, and I think he played first team at 17. Just outstanding. To see what he's done at Sedgley. I've been a couple of times and watched him, and he's just an outstanding player. Just generally, just has this aura around him, and you see when he speaks, people listen. A lot of people have that. He just loves getting over the gain line, and just somebody that you just think, he was a good player. You could tell, when I've said this before to people, when you're in the changing room before the game and you look about the changing room and you think, got a chance here. There's one or two players like that. Matty's one of them. If he's in your team, a striker player, you're going to do all right. Do you know what I mean? You're going to get there. Number 11 it's funny, this lad, because he's in Australia now and he is a convict. So he's with that lot. It's Smigger, Matty Smith. What can you say about Smigger? He's a little bundle of energy that doesn't stop. Just played with him a couple of times in the second team and the third team, and he was just a different level. You could see his first few times he played, when he played in the second team game, I think he played, it did be Talk H.
Yeah, it was away,
Yeah, I think you played in it as well. I remember saying to John Parker and at the end of the game and a couple of other people, I'm like, you're never going to see him again, because he was just level.
He was playing football at the time as well. Yeah. Prescott Cables or something.
Yeah, he was decent. But again, another one who could just, absolutely just make something out of nothing. Do you know what I mean?
That's it, rabbit out of a hat job. Yeah, definitely.
There'd be no chance on hell he'd be scoring and he'd score it. And then he'd kick it off the touchline then as well, just and be like,
just to rub it in,
Me 10, I've only played, again, a couple of these I've only played a couple of times, but I've gone for the best players that I've actually played with.
Yeah.
I've gone for Akko, Chris Atkins. My second cousin Dean Morris brought him up to the Wids to play. Obviously, his dad played, and in his first game, me and Andy Atkins had the same conversation all the time I said, turn around to him and said, he's too good for this. He's thinking, he's kicking, he's passing. It was all crisp. It was clean.
His running game, which he's not well known for, his running game is great.
It was everything. I went and watched a first team game where he played scrum half. Paul McClendon.
Warrington away.
Warrington away.
He won it. He won it on his own.
He won it on his own at scrum half. He was outstanding. He kicked them to death. There was a point in the game where there were lads for Warrington walking back saying, like, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And we were like laughing, going, there's nothing you can do. He was just too good. And he was like, he was absolutely like frighteningly good. Even then, and now you see him in Super League, another one ripping it up in there. You think, wow, but he's in there definitely. 9, there's only one man for the job. I think anyone who's played at the club, he goes straight in there and he completes the hat trick of Riley's, which is obviously crack. I've never played with Paul or Gaz, so I can't get them in. Otherwise, that would be that line, which would be pretty good, wouldn't it? To be honest, I know they had it vets, but crack. What can I say that hasn't been said about crack? You've only got to mention his name in circles. I'll tell you a quick story about him. A couple of years ago, when we were Waterloo thirds, had battered everybody throughout the league, and basically, if they beat us, they go up, they get promoted out the third team league. So we were like, this could be hiding this. and they like went 28-0 up. Now before the game, as we're walking over there, scrum half says to me, "Is that Crack Riley?" I went, "Yeah." He went, "I've never beat Crack Riley in all the times I've played against him." And we were like, "Yeah, whatever." He said, "No, he said, whenever Waterloo play Widnes and he's played, I've never beat him. He's beat me every time." They were 28-0 up. We won it 31-28 by the end of the game. And this fella was fuming. And Crack knows his name, so if anybody wants to ask him who he is, Crack will tell you the story as well. He was fuming because it was his last game, this fella. It was his last chance to beat Crack, and he didn't beat Crack. And he was adamant. These players were adamant that it was Crack Riley. That's how like high, he's
out
yeah,
up and down the country, in it really, mate.
Yeah, and you've only got we went to Fylde earlier on in the year, me and my dad, to watch Sedgley and the boys and that. And they went over to Bill Beaumont and he tapped Bill on the shoulder and he went, "Excuse me, Mr. Beaumont." Went, Mr. Riley, and started talking. And Bill had the conversation with him as they always do about playing the weights, blah blah blah, and that. And that's how he's, the former world president of rugby thinks you're a good player. You've got to be a good player.
Yeah, you've done all right, yeah.
Yeah. Me 8, I'm a bit hesitant to put this in, but he has paid me for this, so I want that going on record to get him in so I can pick him up. And it's Johnny Preston. So I've put him in because he didn't play a lot of the Wids because obviously he moved Australia and London. But when he did play, he played a lot in like the third team, and he played like scrum half in the third team a couple of times. He played centre, but he's got good hands. He's quick. He's a good rugby player. He jumps in the lines. He's everything that you kind of want in a back row stroke second rower. And I think if he if he was still at the club, I generally think he would have been a club captain. Obviously, he's not because he's moved on and done whatever. He's done brilliantly, and tip me up to him. Yeah. But yeah, JP at number 8. So I'm expecting a check in the next week or so off him. Otherwise, there's going to be trouble. So my 7 is Tom Mack. He's kind of another one. If you know him, you know him. He's his typical 7. If you said to somebody, "Make me a blind side, an open side amateur player," they're going to give you Tom Mack. That's him. He does everything. He does the stuff that nobody wants to do. He does the ball carrying really well. There's the tackling. He can pass, although it's not advised because sometimes it can go away with, and we're not insured for it. I don't think the club can handle that. But yeah, I've put Tom Mack in me in at 7. I've got Dave Braden at 6. Now I put Dave in because when I was in the third team, he helped me a lot with my throwing in and my lineouts. Because I was a fairly new hooker, I didn't really understand the process of it and that. But he is a bit like Tom Mack, does the dirty stuff, takes the ball well, can pass. I've seen him play 9, I've seen him play centre. He's got a good set of hands on him. Top bloke as well, really good fella. A bit like Josh, rugby knowledge is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous when you see, when you're having a conversation with him and you're like, wow, technically knows all this stuff. He's really good at coaching, really good at that. And, he's someone that I think that the club could get a lot out of if they got into him properly.
Yeah.
My second rowers are Richie Barraclough. Was club captain when I was Colts. Helped me a lot. Always had time for me, which other players didn't, which I thought was really, really good. Would always be one of the first to say, "Did you play?" And if I said no, he'd want to know why or what did I do. He'd help me with things and stuff. He would, he'd be willing to have a chat with anyone. He sort of at the time he was the standard. Training 3-4 times.
He was really professional in an amateur club.
Yeah, he was like, we do this, lads. We were if training was at 7 o'clock, we were all in that big changing room at 6:30, boots on, ready to go out, tick and pass. yeah, that was it. He sort of like set the standard as that. My next one is a bit of a out there one, but it's Nige Silk.
Yeah.
If people will say, "Oh, Silky's not a good player," if you play with him and you see what he does, he is a good player. Yes, he's kicked and stamped on everybody that he's played with, and everybody shouted at him. But he is he's your typical, I'm I'm going to say dumb, but it's not dumb second rower. The one who just does the dog work and does what he's told, sort of thing. He does that. He's not there to pass the ball. If he's got to pass the ball, he can't pass the ball because he's never passed the ball. He takes it in, sets it up, does that. So yeah,
you set piece and smash rocks in it.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Gets about does that. My prop at number 3 is John Paul Favour.
Yeah.
Played about 3 seasons with John Paul. Helped me again a lot with playing hooker. Didn't really want to do it, as I said, but he guided me a lot and helped me. Sort of like said, put your foot here, do this. And my other prop is Nicky Preston. So I'm putting a couple of fathers and sons in it. He also owes me money for this. So I've got no chance of getting that. More chance of getting a pint out of JP than money out of Nicky. Yeah. Again, exactly the same thing. He's helped me a lot with my game and would like say, do this, come here, stand here. Regularly we have a laugh. Him, me and JP would regularly get told off for laughing in the front row by Dave Braden or Crack because we were having fun or causing problems for the ref. Like Neil Burdick regularly when he refed us used to tell us to fuck off because we were taking the piss out of him and he knew we couldn't do anything about it. Because if he did 6-1, he had to do it to us all. So we regularly just, but yeah. And then my hooker, I'm going to apologise now, but I've got you at hooker. Now, it is uncontested, John. So
we should listen. I know where I should have been. So I just talked myself out of it.
Yeah, you had a good agent, mate. That's all I say.
Yeah.
If I'd have had your lawyer, I'd have got away with murder. That's all I'm saying.
It's just an Andy dad, mate, isn't it?
That's what it is. But I can say this now. Yeah, like when right. In no particular order, it's Crack, you, Akko, Tom Mack, Matty and Andy, right, in no particular order. Everyone says, like, pace is, like, there's nothing better than pace. And there's not. There's not. No. However, the thing that you had was you had more pace up here than anybody. You read 3 or 4 players ahead and do it. Apart from that time when you threw that interception pass at the Isle of Man. But we weren't mentioning that. So you got out of it. So you had hands, you had a kicking game, you could tackle, you could get involved when you wanted to. You had everything. But people would say, oh, he wasn't quick enough. Didn't need to be. Horses for courses, as we used to say all the time. There were games where you'd go into your hybrid 9-10-8 position where you'd be like, where's John playing? That whatever he wants. Just what numbers he got on his back? He's got about 4 just in case, he needs to suddenly appear. So that's why it's uncontested to get you in there. They won't push. I promise. Don't get your dad on me.
Johnny got me and you mixed up. He meant you at hooker, Johnny.
yeah. That's right.
It's funny, I was abroad. Where was I? I was away with. Who was it? I think it was Mexico with Josh and Fish, the man that should not be named, and got a text off Tank saying you're starting at hooker on the weekend. I weren't even home. And then my next message was JP saying, welcome home. Can't wait to watch you play hooker. It's like, you bastard.
Yeah, it makes me laugh because, like, when people say, like, 1 to 15, and it's your opinion, you know what I mean? And, like, I've got players in that team that, like I said before, are like, you look around the changing room and you think, yeah, we got a chance here today. And, like, you're one of them, and like, Smigger was one of them, Matty's one of them, Rizza Crack. I can look around, so, if I'm in the changing room, I'm thinking, yeah, we got a good chance. Like, as third team captain, there was no better feeling than walking into the changing room and going, we've got these 4 from the first team, because you see all the third team lads go, oh, brilliant, we've got a better chance of winning now, and everybody lifted the game because they had better players around them, and like, there's always someone who can get a game winner, and if you've got a few strike players in your team, then you're doing all right. Yeah. So that's my 1 to 15.
Right.